Welcome back. This is part 4 of my Visual Basics series. And in this video, I'm going to be going over, like I said, how to import user input into your program and use it, okay? Now, before in the first video in Hello World, we went over some of the console functions, and all those were really used to do stuff to the screen, okay? The way to read user input from the screen is very similar. Okay, I'm going to show you. It's simply console.readline. Okay. There is a read as well, but there's really no reason to use read. Okay, just always read line. It's really because it really does the same thing. Okay, it just allows you to gather more than just a single character. Okay, so don't worry about read. You really will never have to use it. So we have console.readline. Now the reason I didn't show you this in the first video was because we need to know how to use variables before we can properly take user input from the screen and use it in our programs. Okay, this is because the other things were simply actions. It did something. Okay, when I said console.readline, it did something and then it moved on. This does something, but it also acts as a value. This whole thing can be thought of in your program as a value that's going to be filled in later by the user. This alone won't do anything. If I have a program that, just I have this somewhere, it's worthless. It's not going to do anything. What I need to do is set this equal to a variable, or I'm sorry, set a variable equal to this, okay? So let's create a variable, okay? I'm going to call this variable simply user input. Long variable name, just trying to be clear here, okay? And I'm going to save this as a string, okay? Now, let's say I want the user to enter, some sort of information on the screen, right? So I'm going to say user input equals console.readline, okay? What this will do is whatever the user puts on the screen is going to be put into this variable here, user input. Now, similar to read key, readline waits, okay? When the program gets to console.readline, what it does is it stops execution and it waits for not only a key press like read key does, but it waits specifically for enter, okay? So it waits for the user to put something in, then hit enter. And when you hit enter, all those things you just typed in are reported back here, and it's going to be put into wherever you're placing it. I'm putting it into user input, okay? Now, to show you that we now have this data to use in our program, we're going to print out a simple sentence, okay, based on what they put in. So let's have a program that you put in your name, and it's going to say, nice to meet you, okay? Real basic. So we're going to say console.writeline. We're going to say nice to meet you, space, and user input. I'm going off this for a second. Just, yeah. Nice to meet you and user input. Close parentheses and go back. So here what we have is a program which just waits for you to enter your name. You enter your name, it stores your name and user input, and then it creates a string, nice to meet you, and the name you just entered, okay? And then like always, we're going to include the console.read key just so we can actually read what our program did. So I'm going to go ahead and debug this, and let's see how this works. Okay, so again, the program right now is just waiting for the read line. So I'm going to enter my name, say Anthony, and I'm going to hit enter. And it says, nice to meet you, Anthony. See how that works? It waits for the user to input data. It waits for that enter. Once you enter, it takes that data back, stores it in whatever variable you said, and then it creates this string using the variable that you stored it in, and displays it back on the screen. Again, waits for that key press, hit enter again, and the program terminates. And that is how we gather data from the user. Now, in this example, right, I used a string, okay? Now, I could have said, an integer instead, okay? And I could have had this, nice to meet you, and simply printed out, the number again. Or I could print out, let's say, 10 times user input, okay? So if I run this, now it's, instead of taking, that line of text, now it's going to take it as a number, okay? So I can enter, let's say 2, and it returns to me 20, 10 times whatever I entered, right? But keep in mind and be careful of this, okay? The user input, okay, can be anything, okay? Your program is going to crash or whatever if you try to set the user data equal to something that it's possibly not. So, if I were to write, right, if I say that user input is an integer and they don't enter an integer and they enter, high, my program's going to crash. Or if they enter, just space or they enter nothing, right, it can't do that. So just be careful when you're using user input, okay? And make sure that the user understands what is appropriate to enter and what's not. Because if they don't enter the right stuff, your program's going to crash, okay? And I'm going to go over later how you can sort of avoid that. But for now, just be careful to specify to the user maybe, or tell the user, what to enter and what the program can handle and what it can't. And be careful what you're converting this into, right? And this is an integer, and as long as you enter an integer, it's fine. Right, but if it's not an integer, you're gonna have some problems. So that's really it for user input. It's really that's as hard as it gets, right? It's just console.readline. That's it. Again, don't worry about read. You're really never gonna have to use it. So that's user input, and at this point, we're gonna, we can make some pretty cool programs where we can ask it things and it can do things for you. We can begin to make some actually useful programs. If you think about it, even the most sophisticated program still, there's 3 essential parts, right? It takes user data, it does something with that, and then it returns value. And at this point, we can do that. Very basic, but we can do it nonetheless. In the next video, I'm going to go over the if statement, which is extremely important, okay? And this is sort of how your computer makes decisions. And this opens up a whole new bunch of things we can start doing. So this is pretty much it for this video. Thanks for watching. Rate, comment, subscribe, whatever. Questions or anything like that. Again, comments, message me. Here to help. And yeah, so that concludes this video, and I'll see you guys in my next video.